Hello everybody, happy Wednesday. Welcome to my tea table. My name's Elise and today we are going to have a Constitution study group. I'm streaming today from this place. It might look familiar to some of you who've had the constitutional luxury and pleasure of serving jury duty. Because that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about jury duty, and what we have here is this is the jury. This is actually one of the more luxurious versions of the what do they call it? It's called this actual place where they actually, let me look this up. I want to make sure I address this right, more than just the jury. How's everybody doing? The jury box. Duh. So yeah, I brought my tea table, I brought my things, I even brought my disco ball. And if you have the pleasure of seeing me on Instagram, I'm a judge today because we're talking about jury duty. Hey Mafelda, good to see you. Look forward to our meeting tomorrow. Unless you guys are busy again, that's totally cool if you are. I'm in no rush. I'm chilling out. I'm chilling out so hard today. I'm drinking some hemp flower. I'm not even drinking tea. I'm drinking hemp flower. Not looking for that stimulation. I'm looking for a little chill. So I've spoken about this before on my live streams. This is the first time to see me talking about hemp flower. Hey Nick, good to see you, Nick. Happy Wednesday, happy Constitution Study Group Day. We're going to talk about the constitutionality of jury duty. So if you guys have ever participated in the great function of jury duty, let me know. Feel free to share some stories. Oh, you guys are sampling Yanchas. Oh, thank you, Heidi. Yeah, I think I look pretty good at it too. I think I look pretty good. It actually makes me look quite young, surprisingly, for, a white powdered wig, but yeah, guys, if you've ever had a story of jury duty and you feel like sharing it, like maybe not the details of what you dealt with in jury duty, because I do think that a lot of that is meant to stay confidential about the specific case that you were overseeing as a juror. But just your general experience. I'll share my experiences with jury duty. Surprisingly, I've never actually served on a jury before. No one wants me. Maybe, I don't know. I always thought that people wouldn't want it, but I always thought that if I ever did get called in and was asked questions, more than likely they wouldn't want me. They wouldn't want me as a juror because I have a lot of opinions, right? Isn't that a thing? I don't know. I found some articles to read to kind of look into, how jury duty works and how people are selected and some controversial things, constitutional arguments around kind of the rights of a jury, which I was surprised to find. And today I'm drinking some tea, as usual. Always drinking some tea. I am drinking some, well, hold on one second. Let me get my camera plugged in. Can't believe that. I totally unplugged my my overhead cam. I was trying to show off my tea to you guys and I couldn't. So Nick says, yeah, you want me on your jury? I don't know, Nick. I don't know why I laughed so evil to that, but I thought that was funny. Yeah, I would. Oh, let's see. Looks like I'm not going to have my tea cam until I restart my computer. Next time, guys, you're going to miss out on the overhead shot of my tea brewing today, but that's okay. Nick, I don't think that you're ever going to have to be in a situation where you would need a jury to make a judgment on you. Let's hope that you never get to that situation. But yeah, I would definitely not be selected for your jury. I know that's for sure. So Heidi says, I get out of jury duty here every year because I don't technically live in the county where they might need me. Lucky me. See, so there's things like that. I think that's actually the reason why I've never really been called to jury duty. I've been called twice, here in Las Vegas only. And the system here, how it works, is you get your notice in the mail, and then you have to confirm with them that you received your notice, and they give you instruction of your potential day, so they call it the potential day of jury duty, and then you call that morning of to see if you've been selected to even go. And both times when I called up, they were like, yeah, we don't need you. So I never even got to go for the selection process or to see any of that side of it. And one of the times I was really looking forward to it. I was like, I need a break from what I'm doing. I need to like focus on something else for a couple seconds. Excuse me. I get hiccups. Yeah, so I never got to serve on a jury. I would like to. But I would think that I wouldn't satisfy the lawyers what they're looking for, because I've got lots of opinions and a loud voice. So the winter time, you'd be down to do it, Heidi, but not in the summer when it's cold. I get it. Here in Las Vegas, where we are so used to such a warm summer, all the systems are all set up. So there's AC everywhere. So no matter where you go, you're gonna stay cool enough. But I know there's a lot of other places where, yeah, they're not used to warm weather, and there might just be a few days out of the year where you absolutely need AC, so it's like, why even have it? That's how it was in Hawaii. A lot of homes didn't have AC, schools didn't have AC, like even though it gets warm there, but there's only a few days out of the year where it's so warm that there's no trade winds cooling things down, making things better. And also no heaters and no fireplaces. So on the few days of the year where it's actually cold, you don't have any, in most houses don't have any kind of way of warming your house. So you just gotta deal with it. But I mean, that's the price to pay to live in paradise, I guess. I'm gonna see my hemp flower tea. That's not gonna work. How beautiful that color is. Gorgeous. And it's actually like slightly nutty and buttery. Even has kind of an oily texture to it. It's nice. Hi Anna, thanks for joining in. So listening to some jazz music today, I thought it would be suiting. It seems very mature thing to listen to while we're talking about jury duty, which is a very mature adult thing to be doing. So yeah, we're talking adult things. It was -14 where you are, Heidi. You like to be outside in the summer heat. Not here in Vegas. No one likes to be outside during the summer heat. I actually like it. I mean, if you've got like a swimming pool, that's really nice. That makes it, much more bearable. Then yeah, I could spend all day outside. I don't have a pool right now, and actually my complex that I live in a condo in a complex. And our like shared pool, we have a nice shared pool. It's been closed ever since the pandemic. So the whole summer, while the heat, I was never able to go out to our pool one time. The hemp tea, if it makes you sleepy. So we got the question about the hemp flower. When you brew it like this, does it make you sleepy? I've never found it to make me sleepy. I've actually never really found it to give me any kind of like extreme reaction immediately after I drink it. it's a subtle one, and it takes some time. Usually after you've drank it, of course, I'm drinking it, I'm in the middle of drinking it right now, and so most of what I'm feeling sensation-wise with it is just on the taste and the texture, the things that I've already mentioned to you. But it takes maybe about 5 or so minutes after you finish drinking it, that if you recheck yourself, if you check in with your body and see how you're feeling, you'll actually see that it's giving you like a very subtle like muscle relaxation, anxiety relaxation, just general relaxation. So you may notice that in my demeanor after some minutes. It's like a lot of times when I drink tea, especially like strong green teas or black teas, I can get like a little bit of a buzz, and you can hear that like in my tone and my voice. Hey Ariel, good to see you. Happy Wednesday. We're talking about jury duty today. Do you have an interesting jury duty story you'd like to share with us? I don't have one. I don't have an interesting jury duty story. Because I've never been able to go. I want to. I'd like to. You know, next time I get called in, I'm definitely gonna follow through. But here in Las Vegas, they send you the summons, but then the day of, you have to call in. It's like calling into the restaurant to see if you're working a shift, you know? And then they let you know, yeah, we need you or we don't need you. And the 2 times that I was summoned, they didn't need me. So I didn't get to go. But I'm going to talk about it today. I found a couple of interesting articles. First and foremost, though, before I get into that, there was an extra special article. Thank you to our friend Jay Davis in Southern California. He sent to me this morning that is not necessarily in theme with jury duty and what we're talking about, but it is in theme with the overarching concept around this series, and something that has been brought up in the past with this series about the political nature of what we're doing. And some people have even questioned, like, don't you think it's inappropriate to be talking about politics and your tea? We're trying to learn about tea from you. And I insist that we are not political. Like, this in itself is not a political act. We are not endorsing any specific political platform or perspective on this. We are simply trying to ignite our civility and our pride in being, you know, a citizen in this community, not just here in the United States, but around the world. And so understanding how government protocols work is an important part of that. And so that's what we're doing here. And the article that I'm going to share with you right now is a very sad article. And I do warn you about, the sad nature of this article, but it's reality. It's reality, and it is an extreme example of where politics are injected into the tea business. And if we want to address this into a deeper way, we got to look at the right problems before we, criticize some hippie chick trying to engage, civility in our community. So yeah, I'll share that article. So you've been on one, Ariana. Well, that's good. Hi, Marie. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for coming. Love you so much. So Ariana, Ariel, you said that you've been on one and they didn't even care about your thoughts. Oh, you were nice. That's an interesting perspective. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday about his experience on a jury duty, or a jury, excuse me, not jury duty, but his experience on a jury, and kind of a position of leadership that he took within the jury, and kind of this awkward interaction after the sentencing was done. They had, of course, found them guilty, and they were sentenced, and the judge, I don't know if this is standard protocol. Maybe sometime in my research today I'll confirm if this is standard protocol or not, but the judge said, jurors, if you want to stick around and talk with the family of the the defendant, you're welcome to, or you're welcome to leave out the back door. And my friend was just thinking, we just found this person guilty. Like, why would we want to interact with the family of the defendant? But who knows? So you're all about second chances in therapy versus just slamming someone. Yes, and there's actually a place for that. There's a new movement within the criminal justice system called restorative justice. And it's really only taken off in the past couple of decades. It's really a new phenomenon where it's kind of like talking circles, kind of Native American talking circles where different stakeholders involved in a crime come together, including the offender, the victim, the victim's family. Hi, Kayla Bear. Welcome. Thanks for joining in. Streaming live from the jury box. So all the stakeholders come together, and the purpose of these activities is not so much to point a finger at the offender and say you did wrong, but for everybody involved. And this is actually most useful for the family members of victims, is for everybody involved to fully understand the context of why that crime was committed. And so that they can continue on in their lives without having fear that lapse in trust or that lapse in civility is going to happen to them again. And they are afraid to be vulnerable, or they're afraid to interact with society because they're afraid of that happening again. And what they found in these restorative justice practices is that not only is I'm forgetting the word now. It's a difficult word. I should have it like a little vocabulary here of all the words, but the word of when a criminal is less likely to commit that same crime again. They found that the chances of that are much higher when rehabilitation. The chances of rehabilitation is much higher through doing this restorative justice than not doing it, than just punishing without holding space for someone to learn why. A lot of times people that offenders don't even know why. And so, Ariel, we're talking about this, and I've been thinking this is something that we should be implementing into all of our cultural issues where there's offenders or offense or, even generational trauma that needs to be resolved. We can hold these accountability cultural circles where we can have these discussions among all the stakeholders to understand the context around why systemic racism evolves, systemic sexism exists. So, yeah. But, yes, talking about talking circles. Yeah, the talking circles aren't a big thing here in the jury box. In the jury box, it's all about black or whites and definitive decisions, which is interesting. And so there's actually an article that I will go over in a little bit that's talking about some groundbreaking efforts to empower jurors more, Because it's I've thought about that too when I was younger, thinking about jury. It's how do you calibrate everybody to be on the same kind of justice plane of how they're going to look at, a case by the lawyers and make a choice on it, and it's going to be the most unbiased, just choice that can be made. Even the jurors have their own perspectives and their own life experiences that would affect what they would see to be lawful or not lawful. So there's an article I'll go over that's kind of talking about that, and maybe that'll change the future of jury duties, or jury duties. Juries. The duties is just when you're doing the duty. But yeah, first and foremost, I want to share an article with you that was shared with me from Jay Davis in Southern California from Leaves of Cha. Leaves of Cha, really great business. Go check out his website. He does source teas through the TLIP platform. But again, this article is not related at all to jury duty. This is a little deviation from the theme, but I did want to give this reminder about the realities of when politics is involved in the tea business and how dangerous it is. Doing the duty. Yep, Kayla, I said it. I'll say it again. Doing the duty. Kayla, I hope you're having some nice weather there in Arizona. Enjoying our intense jazz music over here. I'll turn it down just a little bit. I figured jazz was a mature genre of music for us to listen to. It always reminds me of that show Night Court. That was a cool show. I grew up watching that show. My mom was into that show, and they always had that really cool, like, jazzy intro. So this is me living out those dreams. So the title of this article is coming from The Nation, which is an international publication, news publication. This is from the February issue, so this is a brand new article published today at 5 o'clock in the morning. So this is brand new news titled "Blood on the Tea Leaves. Kenyan Workers Demand Reparations from Unilever." So Unilever is a very large corporation responsible for a lot of the current tea industry developments. It is the company that owns Lipton. So you might know them better as Lipton tea bags. All right, see you later, Kayla. Love you, girl. Have a good call. All right, so we've got some pretty dark imagery here of a tea farm worker and some blood on the top, but let's get to the story. At least 4 men armed with machetes and clubs broke into Ann Johnson's home. They forced her husband and 11-year-old son into a bedroom and kept Ann and her teenage daughters in a separate room. To this day, she doesn't know for certain if the men who raped her, her husband, and her daughters were her co-workers. They spoke all the local language, Ann testified, but they blindfolded us so we could not see who they were. By 2007, when the attack took place, Ann and her husband, Makori, their names are pseudonyms to protect the family from retaliation, had lived and worked for more than a decade on a Kenyan tea plantation owned by Unilever, the London-based household goods giant known for such brands as Lipton Tea, Dove, Axe, Knorr, and Magnum ice cream. In December of that year, hundreds of men from the neighboring town of Kericho would beat, maim, rape, and butcher the plantation's residents during a week of terror. The attackers killed at least 11 plantation residents, including Makori, whom they raped and fatally wounded in front of his son, and one of Johnson's daughters. They looted and burned thousands of homes and injured and sexually assaulted an unknown number of people who were targeted because of their ethnic identity and presumed political affiliation. This is when politics comes in. A contested presidential election triggered the violence. The candidate favored by Kericho's local population and openly backed by many Unilever managers lost to the politician perceived to have supported from minority tribes. The massacre was not confined to the plantation or to Kericho. More than 1,300 people died in post-election violence across Kenya. Unilever said that the attacks on this plantation were unexpected and therefore that it should not be held liable. You heard that? I'm going to read it again. Unilever said the attacks on its plantation were unexpected and therefore it should not be held liable. But witnesses and former Unilever managers say the company's own staff incited and participated in the attacks. They made these allegations in 2016 in written testimony after the case was submitted to a court in London. Ann and 217 other survivors wanted Unilever Kenya and its corporate parent in the United Kingdom to pay reparations. Among the claimants were 56 women who were raped and the family members of 7 people who were killed. In hundreds of pages of witness testimony and other court records and in interviews I conducted with Ann and another woman, the survivors describe how, in the run-up to the election, their colleagues threatened to attack them if the wrong candidate won. When they reported these comments, their managers dismissed their concerns, issued veiled threats, and made derogatory remarks of their own. Former managers from Unilever Kenya admitted to the court that the company's top management, including then managing director Richard Fairburn, discussed the possibility of election violence in several meetings, but only ramped up the security of its senior personnel, factories, and equipment. Once the violence ended, Unilever shut down its plantation for 6 months and put its workers on unpaid leave. I'm going to read that again. Once the violence ended, Unilever shut down its plantation for 6 months and put its workers on unpaid leave. Many of the survivors have been robbed of their belongings and were left only with unpaid hospital bills. Unilever Kenya insists it is not responsible and blames the police for acting too slowly. Meanwhile, its corporate parent in London maintains that it owes the workers nothing and that the victims should sue the company in Kenya, not the United Kingdom. But the workers say that a lawsuit in Kenya would spark more violence, including from their earlier assailants, some of whom still work at the plantation. Since the survivors began their struggle for reparations, Unilever has donated millions of dollars to UN Women, the United Nations entity that promotes gender equality and female empowerment, and to feminist non-governmental organizations, which release research papers and run media campaigns that paint the company as a corporate role model for its treatment of women. Unilever highlights these partnerships to assure employees and recruits that its businesses help eliminate poverty and boost women's economic and social rights. The cornerstone of Unilever's feminism is the idea that providing a woman like Anne with an income and giving her the confidence to dream bigger enables her to lift her family out of poverty. Some of Unilever's most influential beneficiaries among feminist groups appear to be swayed by the company's charity and refuse even to discuss the massacre. Bye, Heidi. Thanks for being here with us. I hope you have a great evening. Enjoy your dinner. We'll see you soon. In 2018, a judge in the United Kingdom ruled that Unilever's London headquarters would not be held liable for the failures of the Kenyan subsidiary. Now, Anne and her former co-workers are looking to the United Nations to step in, not to UN Women, which continues to celebrate the company as a feminist champion, but to the UN Working Group on Business and Human Rights, which is expected to decide over the next few months whether Unilever has failed to meet the United Nations guidelines for responsible business behavior. As Anne explained to me, the company promises they would take care of us, but they didn't. So now they should pay us so we can finally rebuild our lives. That's their tea. I'd never seen this before. This looks like some kind of like plastic weaved basket with their tea. They're probably carrying, I don't know, maybe like 30 pounds, 40 pounds of harvested green leaf in these baskets. It's tough work. Unilever's hilly tea plantation in Kenya's southern Rift Valley covers about 13,000 hectares in 2007. 13,000 hectares, that is a lot of land. That is a lot of land. That's like, I don't know, let me get the exact amount. (32,000 acres. 32,000 acres. It includes about 20,000 residential workers and their families and boasting on-site schools, health clinics, and social facilities. 20,000 workers. 20,000. A lot of people to be accountable for and protect. The estates are essentially a company town and a cosmopolitan one. The workers belong to several ethnicities from across the country. The Johnsons hailed from Kishi, a county 2 hours away from the Unilever estates, and identify as ethnically Kishi. On the plantation, the Kishis make up nearly half the residents, but in nearby Kericho, the homeland of the ethnic group called the Kalenjins, they were a much smaller minority, and many people in Kericho looked down on the Kishis and other foreigners. The plantation reflected this divide. The Kalenjins were mostly managers, and the Kishis and other minorities worked primarily as tea pluckers. Anne told me before 2007, relations among the different ethnic groups had been fairly cordial. For her teenage girls and 11-year-old son, the tea estates were the only home they'd ever known, the place where they were born, went to school, played with friends, and attended church. Anne said she felt proud to work for Unilever and appreciated that the London office regularly sent managers to make sure everything was okay. I made her feel like she was part of a global company that cared. Still, Unilever paid only 10 Kenyan shillings per kilo of tea leaves plucked, which made life challenging. It meant that Anne and Moriko usually worked 7 days a week for an average weekly wage of $37 and $57 respectively, and never had quite enough to pay their bills. We reported for work at 6:30 in the morning, she told me, and often finished 12 hours later. The couple spent the last Sunday of December 2007, as they did any other day, in the field with a basket on their backs, though they expected the evening to be tense since the election results would be announced in the late afternoon. Earlier in the week, millions of Kenyans had gone to the polls to elect either Raila Odinga, who led the Orange Democratic Movement, or Mwai Kibaki of the Party of National Unity as their new president. Anne hadn't voted herself. She didn't even vote. Weeks earlier, she had applied for leave to travel to Kishi, where she had registered to vote, but her manager declined the request, she said. This experience was common among the members of minority tribes because Daniel Leader, a lawyer and partner at the London law firm Leyday, who represented the survivors in court and whose team interviewed all 218 claimants. One of the survivors, a man who says a Unilever co-worker and 5 other men attacked him with machetes, clubs, and swords, leaving him permanently disabled, and whose wife was raped by others, wrote in his statement that the survivors did not want us to go home because most of us were registered to vote locally. The supervisors. The only reason I was in the Kericho area at that time of the post-election violence was because of my work on the estate. The impending election had exacerbated tensions between Unilever's Kalenjin workers and their more junior Kishi colleagues. They assumed we Kishis backed Mwai, Anne explained, whereas the local Kalenjin population were overwhelmingly pro-Odinga. Nice photo of the tea estate. But these are all the workers' quarters. That's where all the workers. 20,000 workers work on this estate. It's not a small one. It's a big one. In the weeks leading up to the election, survivors said ODM-supported staff turned the tea estate into a fiercely pro-Odinga space, organizing political rallies and strategy meetings on the property. Anne told me that the perception of the Kishis as Kibaki supporters led some Kalenjins to treat them with hostility. She said the team members, for example, began to allocate her job duties to non-Kishi workers. Other coworkers stopped talking to her altogether. To Anne's distrust, she found leaflets with hateful slogans like "foreigners go home" in the residential areas, making her worry that something bad may happen after the election. Her fears were widely shared among the Kishis on the plantation. A woman who asked to be called Mary told me that coworkers threatened to drive her out if Odinga lost and inquired about the value of her possessions, implying that they'd be stolen. In testimony submitted to the London court nearly a decade later, many other Kishis claimed that they experienced similar xenophobic and intimidating treatment in the weeks before the election. According to one worker's testimony, her Kalenjin colleagues told her that Kishis would be killed if Odinga lost and that they should start moving away before blood was shed. Anne was frightened but kept quiet. "The company is so big, I assumed that they would protect us," she told me. Those who felt less assured and who asked their team leaders and managers for protection were met with indifference, according to Mary and other survivors. In court testimony, many recalled how various managers ignored their pleas for more security and dismissed them by saying, "It's just politics." Other managers instructed the concerned workers to lobby and vote for Odinga, saying that they would be forced to leave if they didn't. An estate manager admitted to the London court that Unilever Kenya's senior management, including Fairburn, the managing director, had been aware that there would be unrest and that the plantation could be invaded. They had discussed the need for extra security in at least 3 meetings in December, he said, but management took measures only to secure company property, factories, machinery, stores, power stations, and management buildings, while no thought was given to increasing the security of the residential camps in order to protect the workers. Another former Unilever manager corroborated this claim. Fairburn, who allegedly present at the meetings, refused to comment on them when I called him. To this day, Unilever claims that it could not have predicted the attacks, even though the media in Kenya internationally, including the BBC, Al Jazeera, the New York Times, and Reuters, had reported on the impending ethnic violence. Anyone who knew anything about the Kenyan election in 2007 knew it had the potential to end in significant and widespread violence, and that this violence could largely break down along lines of identity and affiliation. And Tara Von Ho, who teaches law and human rights at the University of Essex, both Unilever Kenya and its corporate parent in London should know that the workers and their families were at risk, she continued. To protect them, she argued, Unilever could have hired extra security guards, trained its security personnel and managers, and solidified their buildings or evacuated residents for the period immediately surrounding the election. Instead, said Leader, the workers' London attorney, Unilever created a situation where these employees were sitting ducks, at risk because of their ethnicity. Meanwhile, Unilever Kenya's managing director and other executives went on holiday before the crisis, according to the former managers, and the company evacuated the remaining managers and expats on private jets once the violence broke out. Of course, the private jet was there, ready to get them out in time. When the news of Kibaki's victory came on Sunday evening, Anne was preparing supper with her family. Moments later, she heard people screaming outside and knew they were in danger. We quickly locked our doors, she said. That night, hundreds of men armed with machetes, clubs, kerosene jars, and other weapons invaded the plantation. They looted and burned thousands of Kishi homes, which they marked with an X and attacked their inhabitants. Court records paint a harrowing picture of what unfolded on the plantation over the next week. People were gang raped and viciously beaten and saw their co-workers set on fire. When they fled for safety to the tea bushes, the attackers pursued them with dogs. Some claimants said that the marauders yelled that this wasn't our land and that we should be killed or should leave. Mary testified that she called her manager and pleaded for security, but was told that she and her co-workers needed to protect themselves instead. We do not know the total number of people who were raped, killed, and permanently disabled, Leader told me. He thinks the 218 claimants he represented are not the only surviving victims. Many people are too scared of retribution or renewed attacks from colleagues who they continue to work alongside of, he said. Concern about violent reprisal was one reason the survivors wanted to sue Unilever in the United Kingdom. Another was that Lay Day represented them for free, whereas in Kenya the survivors would not be able to afford legal counsel. Lay Day argued that its Kenyan clients had the right to sue Unilever in London, since UK law allows workers from international subsidiaries to sue the UK-based parent companies if, among other things, they can show that the corporate parent company plays an active and controlling role in the subsidiaries' day-to-day management. Unilever Lay Day argued clearly did. Unilever's lawyers nonetheless insisted that the victims could file their case in Kenya and suggested that the tea pluckers band together and raise funds from friends and family. Multiple victims said they recognized their attackers as Unilever colleagues and had identified by name in their witness statements. One woman told the court that shortly before the election results were announced, she had seen co-workers armed with pangas, machetes, and rungus clubs roaming the tea estates, threatening the Kishis that if ODM did not win, they will be forced to leave. The next morning, she was attacked by 5 of her colleagues, whom she knew by name. The men started beating me with a metal rod on my back and on my legs and were going to rape me, she stated in witness testimony, until a Kalenjin neighbor, who was a male nurse, intervened to stop the attack. Well, there's a blessing. In court, Unilever denied that its own staff participated in the attacks, but when I asked Unilever representatives how the company knew this, they declined to comment further on the issue. Unilever also refused to tell me the number of people it believes were attacked on the plantation and confusingly responded to another question with the claim that 93% of all people affected had returned to work when the plantation reopened in 2008. The company wouldn't clarify the figures that underpin this percentage or whether they include rape victims. After the attackers left, the Johnsons fled and hid for 3 nights in the tea bushes before making their way to the police station in nearby Koiwa. Covered in mud and blood, From there, police officers escorted them to safety, and the family was able to escape to Kishi, where they kept a small plot of land. Without savings, they could not afford the hospital costs for either their eldest daughter, who suffered severe injuries and got weaker by the day, or for Mokori, who had internal bleeding. In the months that followed, both of them died in their mud house in Kishi. The rest of the family lives there to this day. This is the aftermath. So this is the residential housing for the estate after. You can see that a lot of damage. Some of the houses don't even exist anymore. They were completely destroyed. Such a sad story. And this is what happens when politics gets involved in the tea business. Me sitting here talking about jury duty and trying to enlighten all of us on what it means to be civilized and what a constitution means for that civility is nothing in comparison to this. I mean, this is like a real issue. Oh, well, the story continues. Let's see. Anne said that the only communication she received from Unilever since the attacks was an invitation to return to work months later and a letter offering her about $110 in compensation. $110. The letter suggests that this amount was set and paid for by Unilever's corporate headquarters in London. On behalf of the entire Unilever Tea Kenya Limited family, it reads, "We thank Unilever for their understanding, material, and moral support, and we hope that this timely gesture will go a long way to bring normalcy back to our employees and their families." Anne told me she never returned to the plantation because she can't leave her son. Now in his mid-20s, he developed very bad seizure and panic attacks after what happened and needs constant care, she said. Severely traumatized and unable to afford the psychological treatment they need, her son and daughter both stopped going to school. "We live off gifts from relatives and neighbors in the little maize we grow on our land," she said. Mary told me that the attacks had left her family destitute and had led her children to drop out of school as well. A male survivor who claims Unilever refused to pay any of his family's medical bills told the court that the wages I did not receive and the money which was stolen from my home I could have used to educate my children, most of whom left school after the attacks. Permanently disabled and suffering from chest pains, the man said he still cannot do any meaningful work that can support my children and wife. The claimants say that that Unilever owes them meaningful reparations, but Unilever insists it has already compensated them. The company's spokespeople told me that it paid all of its workers who eventually returned to the plantation with cash, new furniture, and has also offered their families free counseling and medical care. But they won't say how much Unilever gave the workers or comment on the letter that Anne shared with me. In the summer of 2018, Anne and a group of other victims rebutted their claims in a letter to Paul Pullman, the company's CEO at the time. "It's not right that Unilever has said it helped us when we knew that is not true," the letter stated. It continued, "Unilever just wanted us to go back to work as if nothing happened, and those of us who did were told we must talk about what happened. We are still scared that we'll be punished if we speak about the violence." Unilever says that after the violence, every employee was given compensation in kind to offset our lost wages, and that we were given replacement items or cash to buy new items to replace our stolen property. But those who are too afraid to return got nothing, and only some of those who returned were given $110, a little more than a month's salary in a little maize, which was then deducted from our salary. What? We were told that if we saw people with our belongings, we should say nothing. Pullman appears not to have responded to the letter, but he has asserted that the economic empowerment and safety of women working across our supply chain is a top priority. In multiple brochures that the corporate published with UN Women between 2016 and 2019. When you visit Unilever's careers website, a talent recruitment bot named Una may tell you, as she recently told me, that the company's key values are integrity, responsibility, respect, and pioneering. The career site may also assure you that by joining Unilever's global team of 168,000 employees, you can feel good about what you do. Bring your purpose to life and create a better world. Are you passionate about racial equality and gender justice? Then Unilever wants to be the place for you. A self-declared leader of a new global movement of feminist corporations, Unilever says its business model has proved that investing in female workers like Anne is both the moral and the economical smart thing to do. In the words of Unilever's current CEO, Alan Jobe, the immutable laws of intersectionality mean that the better the job that we do for women of color, the better chance we have of progressing gender equality everywhere. Giving such women an income will boost their country's development, especially since female workers reinvest 90% of their incomes back into their families. Unilever alleges, whereas their male counterparts spend most of their money on themselves. Duh! Yeah, we gotta support the women, always. Unilever has won plenty of awards and commendations for its support for female workers. Oxfam, Care International, Women Deliver, and the International Center for Research on Women all hold it up as a feminist corporation par excellence and praise its top male executives as allies. UN financial records show that soon after the Kenyan workers filed their cases against Unilever, the corporation bumped up its yearly contributions to the UN Women from less than $40,000 in 2015 to more than $1 million a year since. Unilever applauds UN Women. They only send $120 to each of these workers, but then they'll send $1 million to the UN just because it's better for marketing. Unilever applauds UN Women on its website and in conferences for helping it achieve its goal of empowering 5 million women workers by 2020 and protecting the rights and safety of female tea pluckers. Similarly, UN Women's website, social media pages, brochures, and annual reports celebrate Unilever and its CEO, first Pullman and then Jobe, for the moral leadership. One project the two organizations teamed up for is a safety manual that draws on Unilever's expertise to teach other companies to ensure all women and girls are socially, economically, and politically empowered in rural spaces that are free from sexual harassment and other forms of violence. None of the material hints at what Anne and the other people in Unilever Kenya's plantation endured. In fact, the changes and improvements that UN Women and Unilever advocate don't address the company's corporate behavior at all. Instead, they call on others to be better. Women are told to be more assertive and self-confident and are offered self-esteem workshops. Traditional communities are educated to be less sexist. Men get lessons on gender justice. Just hang out on our stream. If you really want to learn how women need to behave and be celebrated, just hang out with me here. It's easy. It's easy. You don't have to, you don't have to make it so challenging. A much tougher burden of proof fell on Anne and the other survivors when they had to prove their treatment by Unilever to the London court. Under UK law, a parent company can only be held liable for the health and safety breaches of its subsidiaries if it exercises a high degree of control over their safety and crisis management policies. To prove that the UK parent company did indeed exercise such control over Unilever Kenya, Lay Day submitted witness statements from former workers who testified that the frequent visits made by London managers and from 4 former managers who gave evidence that the head office shaped, supervised, and audited the safety and crisis management policies of Unilever Kenya and even made its own safety protocols compulsory. This meant that, as one senior manager with over 15 years of experience with the company put it, Unilever Kenya was confined to strictly complying with policies and procedures which had been cascaded down by Unilever. Another senior management states that London's checklists and detailed policies had to be complied with, or an employee would be dismissed or face some other sanction. While the safety protocols accurately identified the risk of ethnic violence, they failed to instruct managers on how to respond to such emergencies when they actually happened, according to the managers. This policy flaw explains why, in the words of one, "If I was left to deal with the crisis on my own." This testimony seemed to support Lay Day's claim that the London headquarters shared liability. Yet to prove it to the court, the law firm needed access to the actual text of the protocols that the managers described. However, since these were pre-trial proceedings, many of that court had not accepted jurisdiction. Unilever had no duty to disclose relevant materials and simply refused to hand over the documents. The judge's ruling made clear that the weakness of their evidence played a major role in her decision to deny the Kenyans jurisdiction. Human rights scholars and corporate accountability advocates condemned the ruling. The court had created a catch-22 for the workers. Van Ho observed the claimants couldn't get the documents that showed Unilever UK did something wrong until they had the documents that showed Unilever UK did something wrong. It's dizzying, she said, and an unfair expectation for employees who had a lot less power than the multi-billion-dollar company that employed them. UN Women would not comment on Anne's case. The group continues to uphold Unilever as a feminist champion and has even hired a former Unilever partnerships director for a senior position, in which she advises other multinational corporations on how to make their supply chain more feminist. In a recent webinar by UN Women and Amphori BSCI, a controversial trade group that counts corporate giants like Amazon among its members, she encouraged the BSCI members to approach women's rights and safety as her former employee does, as a business opportunity that can benefit rather than hurt the bottom line. I mean, okay, you could make that good. You could turn that into a good angle, but not with her experience. Not at all. That's so superficial. She assured them that by partnering with UN Women, the companies could pick priorities that match their growth objectives and then monitor their own progress. In presenting her case for UN Women partnerships, she remarked that the businesses should use their projects to attract young talent, many of whom want to understand that they are in good company. A UN Woman spokesperson explained that the webinar's business case was based on research by McKinsey, Accenture, Bank of America, and the International Labor Organization, all reputable, great ethical organizations. Recently, feminist political economists like Genevieve LeBaron, Adrienne Roberts, and Sophie Tornhill have criticized corporate alliances of this kind, pointing out that they provide businesses with unearned PR while cheapening and distorting feminist ideals and principles. The huge empowerment claims of these programs and their overwhelmingly positive impact claims sharply contrast with the extremely precarious and vulnerable positions that many of their supposed beneficiaries occupy and conceal their daily struggles, said Tornhill, the author of The Business of Women's Empowerment. They can also undermine the impact of women's rights groups who critique corporations and practice solidarity with women who have been exploited or otherwise abused by corporations. By evaluating the voices of CEOs and their intentions, organizations like UN Women end up erasing the voices of women they claim to stand for. One such form of erasure was on display in 2019 during Business Fights Poverty, a Unilever-backed corporate responsibility conference held in the University of Oxford that attracted NGOs, UN staff, academics, and business people. At an afternoon panel discussion about gender-based violence and supply chains, a manager from Unilever spoke at length about how the company helps prevent attacks on its tea plantations and support female workers. Not once did she mention the mass rapes and killings of the company's tea workers in Kenya. To correct this incomplete picture for the audience, I asked the Unilever manager during the Q&A session if she could speak about the allegations made by the Kenyan workers. The manager explained that her legal department wouldn't let her, but allowed me to share my version with the audience. Yet, when I did, the moderator, a senior economic advisor for CARE International, which receives funding from Unilever, cut me off and told me that this was not related to our current conversation. It was a telling statement, given that the topic of discussion was precisely violence against women on tea plantations. Anne said that she remains hopeful that international human rights advocates will support her cause, with other victims who recently filed a complaint against Unilever at the United Nations, arguing that the company violated the UN Guiding Principles for Business and Human Rights. One requirement is that companies must ensure that victims of human rights abuses in their supply chain have access to remediation. Van Ho anticipates that the UN body, which is expected to reach a decision soon, will agree that Unilever breached these guidelines. hiding behind leg loopholes and refusing to disclose relevant information to avoid paying reparations is the exact opposite of what guiding principles prescribe, she said. Though the United Nations can't force Unilever to pay up, Anne hopes that the case will generate the attention and public pressure necessary to push the company in that direction. When asked what it would mean to her if the workers' success in their efforts, she told me it would be the greatest moment of my life. Well, man, we've gotta like help Anne get justice in this, because this is just, oh my goodness, like what a crazy, terrible story. And you know, I said that this article was off topic for today, but no, this is totally on topic. I am going to encourage all of you to see yourself as a juror in this situation. Let me know, what do you think about this? What do you think should be, done about this with Unilever? And not only with Unilever, I mean, obviously, yeah, what do you guys think? What do you think should happen? Like, I mean, Unilever is definitely at a lot of fault for, providing the safety, sorry, I got an email I had to answer. Yeah, man. It's like, it seems like the UN is at fault too, right? And doesn't like the UN, I mean, they have their own courts and they have their own protocols of civility, and something like this is going down where the UN is like protecting, and it's all because of money. That's incredible. If you guys are still watching and you have some thoughts or some emotions around this, please share. I'd love to hear what you think about this. And this is not about cancel culture or anything like that. Like, this is like talking about the realities of what happens when there's injustices in the world and everything is against you. And as consumers, like, we're losing out too. These are like famous brands that mean a lot to people and inside their homes and with their families. And there's so much, backwardsness involved in it. Yeah. So yeah, that was the article, the tea-related article I wanted to share with you guys today. And that came, again, this was published in The Nation, written by Maria Hengefeld. She is an investigative journalist focused on workers' rights and corporate accountability, and a PhD researcher and Gates Scholar at King's College, Cambridge. So yeah, this woman's actually based in the UK and really dug up an interesting story that we probably never would have read about or heard about if it wasn't for her storytelling here. Actually, I'm just going to do a quick search. And see how many news hits there are for this story. So this is interesting. So there's a Wikipedia. Oh my goodness. I just got to show you guys this really quick. Okay, so there are a lot of articles. Those articles did not start getting published until until that case was brought against Unilever in 2018. So remember, this happened in 2007, and then the case was brought to the court, the UK court, in 2018. And so after 2018 was when you started hearing stories, because that's when the story got out. But there's a Wikipedia article, Kenyan tea workers strike of 2007. So this is the PR cover-up that explains this story, saying that this was it was a strike against Unilever Tea Kenya, that's the company, over a wage increase, and that explains the violence. I mean, that was the only thing I could see. Let's see what else is here. So yeah, there are a lot of articles here. But well, here's one from 2016. Oh, this is another story about another one. Apio. See, this story is getting told. It's just, you know, they definitely don't want it to be told. I'm sure of that. So yeah, let's talk about jury duty. Let's see, something a little less vocally. All right. So I found this article. Jury duty is constitution duty. And this is like a review on a book that I found called Why Jury Duty Matters, A Citizen's Guide to Constitutional Action, published in 2013. I won't be reading that book, but this article right here is like a review of that book. It is a book that will walk you through the constitutional lessons built within the jury process and shows why they are important for democracy. These are the foundational principles of our character. Participation, deliberation, fairness, equality, dissent, accountability, liberty, and the common good. These are constitutional values, but they're also a part of the experience of being a juror. They are literally built into the structure of the court system. A constitutional democracy requires self-government. When we have to participate in it, we have to act. Jury duty is one opportunity to act. In fact, it is a requirement. It is a practice run for other forms of democracy. Alexis de Tocqueville likened juries to free public schools, always open to teach the skills of democracy, and they still are. Jury service remains our only mandatory constitutional duty. It is a weighty responsibility. Ordinary citizens are given extraordinary power to decide life or death, guilt or innocence, whether a company or government is held responsible for its wrongdoing. Yet there is no prep class we take, no training, no prerequisite to go become a juror. So self-education, reading, is critical, and that's what we're doing right now. Jury duty is a statement about America and Americans, about who we are expected to be as citizens. Jury duty is a common enterprise. We have to come together to do something for the common good. We have to purposefully look to our community and represent that community. The jury is thought of as a community conscience. There was thought to build the civic virtue necessary for a working community and government. Think of those first words of the Constitution. We, the people, do ordain and establish. We have to do something. We have to be constitutional actors. Jury service was practice and proof that we can meet our Constitution responsibility. After all, if we are entrusted to decide the fates of our fellow citizens, then we should also be entrusted to decide the future of our country. Every lawyer, judge, law professor, or law student will be asked at one time or another about jury service. Usually it is a family member or a friend inquiring about the responsibilities of service or trying to get out of it. That's a big thing. Yeah, and let me know if you guys have any stories, any interesting, funny stories of when you tried to get out of jury duty. So then I found this other article. This is not, so informational on jury duty, how it works, and how to be a juror, but this is talking about a controversial thing and this kind of new path that we may see, for jurors, and it's kind of exciting. So I thought we could read into this and learn about this. What is jury nullification? This is from January 2019, so just a few years old. This is a very relevant, this is posted on the ACLU website in the Speak Freely segment. So this is kind of like an editorial from the ACLU, written by Naomi Gillens, who's a fellow of the ACLU. Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. Cool. This is short enough. We'll get through it quickly. Eric Patrick Brandt and Mark Ioannisili were handing out pamphlets outside a Denver courthouse in July of 2015. They wanted to inform the public about jury nullification. That is, the power of jurors to vote against convicting criminal defendants under laws that the jurors believe are unjust. Brandt and Ioannisili were trying to participate in a centuries-old and still thriving discussion. The pamphlets they were handing out included statements such as, "Juror nullification is your right to refuse to enforce bad laws and bad prosecution." Hi, Laura. Good to see you. Much love. Pure aloha. Talking about jury duty today. Once you know your rights and powers, you can veto bad laws and hang the jury. So when it's your turn to serve, be aware you may and should vote your conscience. You cannot be forced to obey a juror's oath. You have the right to hang the jury with your vote if you cannot agree with other jurors. But the two activists' attempt to educate the public led to their arrest. Brandt and Ioannisili were both charged with 7 counts of criminal jury tampering under a Colorado law that bars any person from communicating with a juror with the intent to influence the juror's vote in a case. On Tuesday, we filed a friend to the court brief in the Colorado Supreme Court, arguing that the application of the jury tampering law to Brandt and Ioannisili's pamphleting is an unconstitutional restraint of speech. The most essential function of the First Amendment right to free speech is to protect discussion and debate over government affairs and public issues, from access to effective counsel to the selective enforcement of criminal laws. The criminal justice system and the way criminal trials are conducted are quintessential matters of public concern. The role and power of juries in particular have been subjects of debate and discussion since before the founding of the Republic. English courts first recognized the jury's power to acquit a criminal defendant, even when the weight of the evidence points to the defendant's guilt. in 1670. Juries in colonial America used jury nullification to protest the power of the British Parliament over the colonies. And Alexander Hamilton, John Adams, and prominent judges in the early days of the nation also believed that jurors had a duty to vote their conscience regardless of the evidence. Important discussion about jury nullification aren't limited to lawyers and scholars. Different views about the topics have popped up in popular articles. This isn't surprising. Jury service is the most intimate interaction with the criminal justice system that many people ever experience. And many individuals completing jury duty may find themselves in the difficult position of having to apply a law that they believe is unfair or immoral. That's what I was thinking about. Like, there's got to be, like, ethical dilemmas even in serving as a juror. Nullification often occurs today where people are prosecuted under draconian drug laws for low-level drug offenses or face harsh mandatory sentences. Historically, jurors have acquitted against the weight of the evidence in cases against Vietnam War protesters charged with destroying draft files and in Fugitive Slave Act prosecutions against escaped slaves and individuals who aided them. Of course, the state can and should prevent individuals from intentionally tampering with a jury in the hopes of influencing the outcome of a specific case. But far from trying to tamper with any particular case, Brandt and Iannicelli sought to educate all jurors, including potential jurors, about the concept of jury nullification. Courts have recognized that such advocacy is protected by the First Amendment. Troublingly, the government's argument that Brandt's and Iannicelli's speech was criminal jury tampering could extend to almost any statement advocating jury nullification that a juror might see from a newspaper op-ed to a tweet. The government may prefer a jury pool that has never heard about jury nullification. The Constitution, however, prohibits the government from banning speech that it doesn't like. The public benefits when ideas, good or bad, are aired out. We all suffer when they're criminalized into silence. See, so and that right there is why I thought that I probably wouldn't make a very good juror, because I have very strong opinions, and if I'm not like 100% with all of my blood and all of my passion and all of my brain cells behind, a decision that I want to make in life, I have issues with that. I try to talk it out, I try to resolve the conflict, to come to a resolution. I can't easily just shut things down and just do things for the sake of doing things to move along. So I would not make a good juror, because I would just make too much trouble. What do you guys think about that? Have you heard of this, juror nullification? I never heard of that before, but it's a thing. It's a thing, and we know about it. So just like the Constitution gives us our rights to say what we want to say and practice the things we want to practice and believe the things that we want to believe, those same rights extend into our responsibility, our constitutional responsibility to serve as a juror. So yeah, if you ever take jury duty, don't take it lightly. You still got to be you. You still got to be you. I did like the music today. Music's been good. This jury box is pretty lush here, though. These chairs are nice, super comfortable. I haven't sat in one yet. As soon as I finish drinking my tea, I'll probably go sit in one. And again, I'm not drinking tea today. I'm drinking hemp flower, infused hemp flower, which is high in CBD, but CBD I don't believe is water soluble, so I'm not extracting a whole lot of CBD. I'm not drinking this for the power of CBD in it, but I'm definitely feeling relaxed and feeling good. Someone had asked earlier if it makes you sleepy. I'm not feeling sleepy. I am feeling good. My muscles are feeling nice and relaxed. I went for a long run this morning and did some exercises, so my muscles have a reason to not be relaxed, but they're feeling pretty good now. Even reading that article, man, that was like such a hair-raising article about the corporate enabled political violence that we see in the tea industry, specifically in Kenya, the article we read. Even reading that, which was just horrific to read those stories, I'm still feeling pretty relaxed, so I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. So much gratitude. All right, Instagram. I'm going to tune out. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow's Thursday. We got tea talks. We'll be hanging out with our tea friends. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go soon, guys. I got a meeting coming in a couple of minutes. Some local person here wants to help me produce podcast. So I gotta get ready for that meeting. Yeah, he's gonna be here in less than 10 minutes. So yeah, where should we go? Where should we go? And yeah, again, tomorrow, come 2 p.m. We start 2 p.m. sharp, and we meet in the Topia Tea House. So that's our virtual tea house space where we can interact. We can actually see each other. We can talk to each other. We can drink tea together. And yeah, we won't be talking about jury duty. Unless you want to talk about jury duty, we can definitely talk about anything you want to talk about. But we usually have fun. And there's a beard. There's a famous beard that comes, and it's a very ornamental, type of situation. So I highly recommend it tomorrow, right here on our Twitch channel, on all of our live streaming platforms, and inside the virtual tea house. I hope to see you guys all there. Until then, though, where should we go? Who should we go raid?